Title: The Man Who Wouldn't Leave. They say spirits linger when love is stronger unfinished. I wasn't supposed to marry young, but I did, and I paid the price. My husband was the only living son of his parents. His mother had passed before I ever met him, but his father, the old man, was still alive. A kind man, quiet. He didn't speak much English, but he loved me and treated me like his own daughter. When I gave birth to my first two children, Ryan and Abby, it was my father-in-law who helped raise them, not their father. My husband was useless, always out drinking, passed out on some stranger's couch, forgetting he had a family. It was the old man who did everything, packing lunches, walking the kids to school, trying his best to help with homework, even though he barely understood the language. He would call them, with love, Rylan and Ah. That's how he said their names. He was the reason I didn't leave, not my husband. I couldn't bear to leave the one person who truly cared for my children. But 5 years ago, he got sick, stomach cancer. For a year I cared for him alongside Ryan and Abby. We fed him, cleaned him, lifted his frail dying body just so he could use the bathroom. Even as I worked 2 jobs and carried my third child, we took turns being there for him. My husband was still nowhere. And then, one cold morning, he was gone. We buried him with full rites. We cried for days. My children mourned as if they'd lost their own father, because in every way that counted, they had. But that's not where the story ends. A month after the funeral, I gave birth to Angelina, a beautiful baby girl. That's when things started happening. It began with small things, innocent things. I'd hear Angelina cry in the middle of the night, but then I'd hear someone whispering softly to her. When I checked the baby monitor, she'd already be asleep, calm and peaceful. Some mornings, I'd find her diaper changed and empty bottles in the sink, but I never fed her during the night. Neither did my kids. And her father, he didn't even know what day it was, let alone how to hold a bottle. Ryan told me something one night, almost casually. "Mom," he said, "I still feel Grandpa tuck me in sometimes." I asked him what he meant. Like, when I'm half asleep, I feel the blanket get pulled up over me. Abby said she sometimes feels someone patting her head when she's crying. Sometimes, I'd come home from work completely drained and find warm food already packed neatly in the fridge. No one had cooked, no one had visited. I told myself it was grief, stress, my mind playing tricks. But then, I started to see him, just flashes, the back of a head, a shadow in the hallway, a whisper of, "Ah," from the nursery, in that same soft, gravelly voice. I knew it was him, my father-in-law. At first, it was comforting. But after the 1-year ceremony, where we performed the rites to release his spirit, I thought it would stop. It didn't. The soft footsteps still came at night, the whispers, the phantom touches. Even my dog avoids the hallway outside the nursery whining, staring into the empty air like someone is standing there. I think he's waiting, watching, still caring for us. But something's wrong. He wasn't supposed to stay. The 1-year ceremony should have helped his spirit cross over. But he didn't go. Maybe he wanted to meet his new granddaughter. Maybe he thinks we still need him. And maybe he's right. But lately the air feels different. He doesn't just linger, no, he clings. The warmth I felt before has become something colder, like love, rotting into obsession. And last night, I woke up to the sound of a lullaby in the nursery, humming, low, hmong, something he used to sing to Abby when she was little. But I know I was the only adult in the house. When I opened the nursery door, Angelina was asleep, and the rocking chair was still moving. back and forth, back and forth. No breeze, no one else awake, just the sound of a voice that shouldn't be there. I want to believe it's love. I want to believe he's still just looking out for us. But now I'm starting to wonder, what happens when a spirit doesn't know how to let go? What happens when they refuse to? And worst of all, what happens when it's no longer up to us to tell them goodbye? Because the dead don't always listen. Title: She Took My Face. 5 years ago, when I was 20, I almost drowned. And it wasn't that I couldn't swim, but because something tried to end my life. We were camping at Yosemite National Park near a small lake with a quiet little waterfall, the kind of place that looks peaceful in photos. The sun seems to hide all of the dark and unexplainable things during the day. But when night falls, it completely transforms into an unsettling environment. At our campsite, the water echoed all day and night. The sounds were soothing at first, but then it turned eerie. Around 6 p.m., we were jumping off the rocks into the lake. There were 10 of us in total. My third jump was when everything started to get unsettling. I went in feet first as usual, but this time as soon as my head dipped below the surface, I felt something unreal. It felt like a hand, but it was extremely cold. It grabbed my ankle and started to pull me down. I panicked and kicked as hard as I could. I was furious, mainly because I thought one of my cousins was pulling a prank on me. Flailing around, I managed to kick something solid. It felt like a face. That's when the hand let go of my foot. I surfaced, gasping for air, choking, shaking. "Who's in the water with me?" I shouted. They all looked at me from the rock. All 9 of them were still there. No one had jumped. My uncle too laughed and yelled out, "You look like you were drowning, dude. Don't blame us if you can't swim." But I can swim. I know what I felt. That wasn't water resistance. It wasn't a current. It was fingers. It was intent. When I got out of the water, I noticed my ankle bracelet was gone. It was a gift from my boyfriend, so I was noticeably upset, but was also too scared to get back in the water after what just happened. I told everyone I would not be getting back in and advised them to stay out of the waters as well. Of course, they didn't care. They continued playing and swimming as if nothing had ever happened. I sat with my aunts, trying to forget everything that had just occurred. Unfortunately, I just couldn't shake it from my mind. About 10 minutes later, the kids came running, tripping over each other and screaming. They spilled over the cooking area, knocking over the pot of rice. It was chaos. That's when my uncle too looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. "My, how did you get here before us?" "What are you talking about?" I replied. That's when my aunt said I'd been at camp the whole time. "No," he said. "You were across the lake, just standing there. You didn't say anything. You just smiled, and when we threw rocks at you, you laughed. Like some happy, twisted, psychotic witch. That's why we ran." Everyone looked at me, but I was still dripping wet from earlier, still shaken. I told my uncle what happened in the water, about the hand, and about my ankle bracelet. He immediately went pale. He pulled me aside and said, "My, just say it was you for now. Don't scare everyone. We'll leave tomorrow." So, I lied. Said I ran around. I laughed and boasted that I beat them back to camp. This lightened the mood a bit, but I could tell everyone was still on edge. That night, my uncle didn't pay respects to the spirits properly. He just threw some food out on the ground, muttering, "Whoever wants to eat, then eat. If not, then don't." We all crammed into one big tent. The 10 of us were cousins. We were all pretty close, so we just joked around trying to lighten the mood. That's when we heard it. A loud pop, followed by a long hiss. We stepped out. The waterfall made it hard to hear, but we could tell that something was off. The air was heavy. My parents started flashing their lights around. That's when my uncle snapped and yelled out, "Don't shine your lights into the wood." He asked where the noise came from. We pointed towards the cars. He shined his light in the direction we were pointing. All 16 tires were slashed. Perfect stabs. No rips or tears. Just clean stabs. We only heard one loud pop. Not 16. Then, trees started falling. 1, 2, 3, 10. All around our campsite. Like something was marking its territory. I bolted into the tent muttering, "Nope, nope, screw all of that." Suddenly, the commotion outside stopped. Then nothing. Silence too deep for a forest. There were no sounds of life. Everyone eventually fell asleep, except me. Suddenly my uncle yells out, "Mai, what are you doing all the way out there? Get back in the tent." I looked at two. He turned around and noticed me. We were both inside. We unzipped the tent. There it was, standing by the trees. A girl looking back at us. She looked so familiar because she looked just like me. Same hair, same clothes, same face. Everything was identical except for her smile. Its smile stretched so wide, almost tearing her skin. She raised her hand. That's when I noticed what was in her hand. She was holding my ankle bracelet. My uncle shouted, "Are you human or spirit? Are you one of those nasty spirit that mimics humans?" Two and I quickly zipped up the tent. I crawled to the middle. I was supposed to sleep by the flap, but no. I just curled up and froze. We didn't sleep. None of our phones worked or had any signal. No help was coming. When morning eventually came, the rangers finally showed up. One of the rangers tried to hand me my anklet. "We met last night, right? Camp 2 miles down?" he asked. "No," I said. "I was here the whole time." He frowned. "Sorry we didn't make it to check on your camp last night. One of our tires blew out." I told him to throw my anklet away. Far away. When we got home, my family performed traditional Hmong spirit calling ritual on me. They wrapped me in strings, black ones around my neck and waist, red around my wrists and ankles. I wasn't allowed to take them off for a year. We never figured out what this spirit was or why it looked like me. Until one night I had a dream. I was doing my makeup in front of the mirror. I brushed my hair, but my reflection didn't move. I did it again. Still no movement. Then my reflection smiled. That same eerie, contorted, horrifying smile. I started praying, screaming. Then I suddenly started chanting some Buddhist words I'd never heard or been taught. And then she changed back into me. Suddenly, like a movie, I was lying in a casket. That's when I heard it speak to me in that familiar, echoing voice of mine. She spoke in Hmong, but it translates to, "I came to you because of what he did to me 3 lifetimes ago. In life 1, he betrayed me. In life 2, he died. In life 3, I died giving birth. In this life, I was never reborn. Because of that, you took my face. Find my great-grandchild at..." She mentions an address. I woke up in the same position I was in when I was lying in the casket. I broke out into tears. Vividly remembering the spirit's request, I drove. I didn't have a plan. I just drove to the address the spirit told me in my dream. I parked outside the house from my dream. None of this made any sense to me. Then suddenly the front door of the home opened. A guy steps out, and he looked exactly like my ex, but it wasn't him. My ex moved to Florida with his new partner. I didn't knock. I couldn't. I just stared, and I knew. I know that this spirit is still watching, and I don't think she's done with me.